maybe you feel comfortable doing it again. Or if somebody questioned you and you had to continue to cover it up. I have a great video from the former controller of WorldCom after he was released from prison. So, and in the interview, he's being interviewed by an Ernst & Young ethics officer. And during the interview, David Myers, the controller, talks about how it happened. And I've met this guy at a conference. He's a very humble, modest man. And he says, you know, I'm a controller. I was doing my quarterly earnings statement. I took it to my boss, the CFO, Scott Sullivan. So I took it to Scott. Scott's like, these numbers are so wrong. You made a mistake. So he goes back and he reworks the numbers. Comes and presents it to Scott again. Scott's like, I know there's a mistake. Can't be this. This is not what our earnings are. It's so far off what we projected them to be. So you've made a mistake. And David says, he's the smartest man I know. I have a lot of trust in him. I have a lot of respect for my position in the company. What do? So I go back and I rework the numbers and come back a third time. Scott's like, okay, there's a mistake here. So this is what we need to report this quarter, and it'll correct itself. There'll be an error in the opposite direction next quarter. That's how it all started. It went on for over 2 years. Companies lost millions, shareholders lost millions, the company went bankrupt. The top 3 people in the company went to prison. So you start down that slippery slope, and you start having to continue to cover up. There wasn't an error and a miscalculation. Scott didn't say, I want you to lie. He said, oh, there's a mistake. It'll be okay next quarter. But once you make the decision to do something wrong, and then you got to keep making bad decisions to cover it up. It's human nature. We don't want to end up wrong. It's just things to think about. And if you think you can get away with it, or if it's something small, you know, again, if you're doing it on the golf course, then if it's something small and in real life or at work, are you going to continue doing it? That's why when you go to these ethics conferences, this is a popular topic of debate, because you can learn a lot by somebody when you're playing the game of golf with them. So gifts and entertainment, a very popular topic. So how do we manage giving and receiving gifts and entertainment to ensure that it's appropriate? So our code, back it's principle number 9 on those 11 that I showed you, the substance behind the giving and receiving gifts is we do not offer or accept gifts or entertainment of substantial value. We do not offer or accept bribes or kickbacks. Does that work?
What's substantial value?
Well, that's a good question. What do you think?
Well, I don't know. I guess everybody has a different opinion about what substantial value is. I don't know if substantial value is anything over $100, I guess.
We wrote it very deliberately like this because if you are a production worker in China and you get offered a gift by a maintenance contract, is that going to be substantial to somebody like Sandy Cutler, who's the CEO sitting in Cleveland? No. It's something that might be very unsubstantial to somebody sitting in Cleveland, maybe, you know, a year's worth of salary to someone in China. So we wrote it very deliberately to say substantial value because it means different things to different people in different parts of the world. The answer is no, but we'll get into that. So you're right. We wrote it very deliberately for that purpose. So what's appropriate? What types of gifts are appropriate?
When I worked for the government, we had a $50 limit. It wasn't allowed to be over $50 US, so anything under that was pretty appropriate.
Okay. What types of gifts are appropriate?
I didn't receive or give any, so I'm not
Actually, you know, the fact that you work for the government, that opens a whole nother realm because there's a lot of special rules that apply anytime you're dealing with anyone who works for a government.
Ours was very, it wasn't vague, it was dollar limits and it had stuff like this. It wasn't really my department, so
Yeah.
I remember 50.
Yeah. So, is it okay to take someone to the most expensive restaurant in town? Is that an appropriate type of gift?
I guess, you know, if the gift is with the intention of getting something in return,
That's a bribe, that's not a gift.
Well, I mean, why would you take somebody out to eat if you weren't getting something back?
A thank you for a good business relationship.
Well, you don't have to take them to the fanciest restaurant, then you can take them to Chili's.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What about adult entertainment? You don't think this happens in corporate life? Let me tell you. It happens still a lot to this day. No, never appropriate. There's a lot of things that, there's nuances to everything, right? We've got a number of corporate jets. What if we fly somebody on a corporate jet somewhere nice? So we're in Cleveland and we want to take a customer to Colorado to go skiing for a weekend. Can we fly them on a corporate jet? Depends on the customer, maybe. But it's very circumstantial. So you have to give a lot of thought to it, and that's what, and where you're going to be working is going to be different from where Eaton is, because companies handle these types of things differently. But you need to be cognizant and aware and have that tickler in the back of your mind when you're giving or receiving a gift, what it could mean and what perception is behind it. So,
Do you guys ever talk about the timing of the gift?
absolutely.
Okay, because I think that would be probably the most important, because if you fly somebody out to Colorado to go skiing a week before they're supposed to decide if they want to sign another contract with you.
You hit the
That's
nail
right.
on the head. Where you're at in the business relationship is one of the key points to giving and receiving gifts. Because it can be construed as a bribe then. Yeah. And if you never do anything in a silo, there's always people that know. So what's the perception? What's the whispers in the coffee room? Yeah. So, a kickback versus a bribe, or a kickback versus a rebate. Do you know what a kickback versus a rebate is?
Kickback is something that you're receiving for obtaining a bid or a contract. I mean, if you need to do some reconstruction on your golf course and you hire this contractor, you get a kickback for hiring him because he's getting the bid to do the job. And then a rebate is if you were to pay out something a little bit earlier, you get a rebate for that.
Sort of. This is a hard one.
Kickback more like, almost like a spiff. If you sell, this product versus that product, you get a little money back in cash. You get $5 for every one of these golf clubs you sell, versus if you sell this other company. But it depends, I guess, how they set it up. It's difficult for that. But I don't know. Or if you order our grips, but you don't order some other company's golf grips, then we'll give you a certain percentage of each of, I don't know, extra percent.
You're on the right track. You're on the right track.
The kickback would go to the person selling it as opposed to the company, wouldn't it? It gives him direct incentives, so they're paying him directly
Yeah.
because he's making the influence that this company's going to buy our product. So we're going to give this to you as opposed to going through your company completely.
Yeah. So, you're right. So, kickbacks are illegal returns. Rebates are legal returns, and usually it's based on volume. So, to all of your points, you hit it. If I'm buying, if I work for a local golf course and I'm buying golf grips, and Lissa offers me that if I buy, I don't know what a reasonable number is, if I buy 3,000 grips a year, she will give me a 5% return. Not me personally. If it's a kickback, that 5% would come to me personally. If it's a rebate, it goes back to my golf course. So a rebate is a legal return back to the company, because you're not using your own personal money to buy it, you're using the company money to buy it. A kickback is when it's an illegal return, so it's coming back to me personally. Does that make sense? I'm not sure I said it in the right order. Does that make sense? Yeah. So it's kind of a sticky situation. It's something we talk about a lot because rebates are a common way of doing business across our businesses. And rebates are legal if they're done the right way. Kickbacks, on the other hand, are not legal because it's going back to the person, not the company. But it's an important distinction.
You know, Rhonda, in the golf business, something that they're gonna have to be aware of is this thing called Golf Retirement Plus, which is getting bigger and bigger all the time. And, you know, the money back from the companies, just exactly what you're saying, it can go, in this case though, it can go quote unquote legally either into the individual professional's account or back as a rebate for the cost of the product.
Okay.
One that really comes to my mind is, you know, they're probably still doing it, but my last year working in a facility was 2006. I remember the deal with Titleist was that 8% you could take, you know, I don't remember the exact percentages, but it was something like this. You could take 8% off the bill for your company, or let's say 4% that goes into your, you know, into your retirement account.
Okay.
Well, first of all, what you have to do, you may have an owner or whatever that you could present that to, and they'd say, you know what, you do a good job here, we'll let you keep that 4%. Or they may say, no, absolutely, we want the 8% savings, but that is a really real thing that all of you are going to run into.
I haven't heard of that one before. Is it common practice and legal in
Yes.
the golf industry? That's very interesting, because generally I think, you know, first thing that pops in my mind hearing that is like, well, 8% goes back to the company, the course, and then you figure out a way to incentivize, or somehow, you know, internally, you find a way to make it worth the person's while, rather than it coming back from Titleist in this case. But I hadn't heard of that before, so that's a good ethical dilemma.
And that's something that the PGA actually advertises quite heavily because it's a value-added deal, you know, like for being a PGA member.
Right.
So there again, it just gets back to what's ethical and what isn't. And I guarantee everyone in this room who's going to end up, you know, running a business, a golf business, is going to be confronted with that, because they usually do offer an either-or option.
Okay.
So
That's interesting.
does Eaton does Golfbrite do that?
Golfbrite doesn't participate in the program. We looked into it and ultimately decided that we didn't want to pass on those costs.
Yeah.
We could do a better job of saving you money with giving you higher margins than increasing the price to be able to afford to do that.
And one interesting thing about grips is, and this again would depend on where they work, but a lot of times re-gripping clubs and things, the facility will allow the professional or assistant professional to keep that money.
Oh, okay.
So kind of what Lissa's saying would be correct, and would actually, if you're paying less money for a grip to begin with, and therefore you make more profit off the sale, that really is better than maybe having 1 or 2% go in your retirement account.
Right, right.
In that instance.
Right, right.
But that could be another thing that the
Yeah.
students will have to face is, okay, you know, I'm re-gripping, and, you know, there's a lot of profit in re-gripping, let's say. And, you know, boy, there's easy $50, and nobody knows I re-grip these, and look at all these grips in this box here.
Yeah,
They'll never know that 12 of them are gone.
right,
And, you know, so there you go.
yeah. Those are all very good examples. And the thing that I can add from the business perspective on this, these types of things are getting more and more and more scrutinized. And I can't say that for the golf industry because I'm not familiar with it enough, but just in general in business, how these types of business interactions, people are taking a much closer look at them. So it's just something to think about. And, you know, I think in the future it's going to continue to go down that road. And I wouldn't be surprised if someday, maybe even in 10 years, who knows, but it starts to get looked at more thoroughly.
And it appears to me, common sense wise, that it would become more of a clash now than ever because of the weak economy. The businesses are going to be looking after their interest, and employees are they're hurting and they want, you know, so
Right.
there is an ethical dilemma that's probably